welcome back to another Monday night. Oh wait, no, Tuesday night. Wait, is this thing on? I'm sorry, I'm a little rusty on this. Anyway, welcome in. Probably all wondering where have I been? What's going on? Did I fall off the earth? The answer is no, I didn't. Thank you, Grish, for. See, I'm rusty. That should have worked. Huh. Well, welcome in. So let's just see who's here first, and then we'll go to will probably be a very long story. Grish is here. Okay, that's working. Eric is here. Nils is here. Nils is, for those who don't know, is teasing the topic of the main element of tonight's stream. Toro is here. Welcome in. Eric says it's the TVJ show now with more Lake. It's a good one, Eric. Ernesto is here. Welcome in. Joe is here. Clear Life Media is here. Welcome in, Kurt. I saw your pictures of your studio. Looks pretty good down there. We will definitely get to that topic. Yes, music's on, music's on. Rebecca is here. Welcome in, Rebecca. Long time no see. And actually, that's Rebecca makes a comment that I remind me later to talk about Stream Decks and automation, and I will we'll get to that topic in a little bit. So yeah, so where have I been? Well, the last time I left you guys, I was planning a week-long vacation to the lake house, not our lake house, but a lake house that we rent. We usually rent the same week every year. It's the same lake house. It's family friends, and it's a good time to just get away and relax. And so we go on our trip. It was a fun week, like usual. And it was let's see here. It was Saturday morning on the day we were supposed to come back home. So we basically get this lake house from 3 p.m. on Saturday to noon on Saturday, so like a whole week, minus 3 hours. And so it was Saturday, time to go home, and I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was in this just panic, like, what is going on? And I was like, okay, is everybody okay? So I grab my phone. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I look at my phone. And there's no missed calls, there's no missed text messages like that, but basically my Ting energy monitor said that it was offline. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. I mean, why is it offline? But then I'm realizing that it's storming outside, and there's a storm here, and so like, well, maybe there's just a power outage. But the Ting energy monitor, which for those of you who don't know, is basically a box you plug into the wall, and it monitors your AC voltage and looks for any kind of like spikes or harmonics that would cause fires. It's paid for by our insurance company, so we don't pay anything for it, but it offers real-time data on the electricity in the house. And it said that it was offline, which means one of two things. Either A, the power's off, or B, the internet's down. And so I was like, okay, well, there's probably a power outage. But then I thought about it for 2 seconds and thought about it and said, wait a minute. In the past, when there's a power outage, it says there's a power outage in your area because it knows who else is in the area, and if their monitors are online and all of a sudden go off just like yours does, then there's a power outage. And so it didn't say that. It said your monitor is offline. So I post on Facebook in the village, Facebook group, and I said, anyone else lose power or internet? And mind you, it's like 4:15, 4:30 in the morning, and one of the neighbors, like 5 houses that way, comments that no, we have both. And that sinking feeling just like took over. And I was like, oh no. So I was hoping that it was just a stupid internet issue, but I just had a feeling. I was like, no, 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 this is not good. So I got in the car at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I drove the hour and a half ish home. And I walked in, and the house was super humid. Now, mind you, we've been gone for a week. The air conditioning's been off. That wasn't a huge shock, but I was like, this just feels extra humid. So I open up the door and see water, and I just walk downstairs. It's not like horribly deep, but yet it's still water. It shouldn't be there. What happened? The house had power, so like we definitely have power. It wasn't like I was walking around in the dark. And so I walked over to the sump pump area, which is over here, and both the sump pumps that I have are just not on. They're not working. And yes, I have two. And so I was like, well, this is not good. So I just unplugged both of them. I plug both of them back in, and the one takes off. And so it starts draining the basement. I'm like, well, at least we got that going for us. So I call my parents, I call my in-laws, I wake them both up and basically say, I need help. I have water in the basement. I need dehumidifiers. I need fans. You know, I could use some help getting stuff out of here. Now, for those who don't know, this is not our first flood. I would say about 10-ish years ago, we flooded one morning, and so this is not our first rodeo. And so my father comes over, my father-in-law comes over. They bring their dehumidifiers, they bring their fans. You know, I'm mopping or squeegeeing the water towards a sump pump, and my father grabs a shop vac and starts picking up water. And so basically, we do the best we can to get to a point where, you know, the water's not coming in anymore. And once it started going down and started draining, it was draining. There was no water coming in after that point, even from the tile into the floor. So like whatever storm event we had was over. So, and I was basically like, okay, well, now I have to go back to Michigan, to the lake house, and basically like, you know, go pick up Haley and all of our stuff. And so I left my father to supervise the sump pump, because the sump pump would come on, but it wouldn't shut off. So my concern was once it caught up, that it would overheat. And so somebody had to basically unplug it, so it wouldn't overheat, and then make sure water didn't come back in. So I go back to Michigan, and where the lake house is. So, you know, go back there. We have to be up by noon. We basically tell them what happened, so we get a little bit of leeway. We pack up the car. We start heading home. And Haley is about 4 minutes in front of me. She had left before I did. So we're driving home, 2 different cars, and she calls me and says, I got a flat tire. I'm like, seriously? Mind you, it is like 85 degrees. It is humid as hell. Like, it is, and these are, I mean, back roads. They're dirt roads. Like, I don't know where any of these roads are. I only know the path to get there. So she tells me what road she's on. I don't know where it is. Luckily, my car has GPS, and I saw on the map that it was the next road. So I pull over, and yep, her tire is flat. So I pull the spare out, I put it on the car, I lower the car, and the spare has no air in it. And so it's not drivable. I was like, of course. So I look at my tires. I'm like, maybe my spare will work on her car. My tires are different size, so that's not going to work. So I take the spare back off the car, and I remember passing a gas station, so I drove back to the gas station in my car. Left Haley there. It obviously was 80 degrees, so she's sitting in her car. And welcome in, Jeremy. And so I go back to the gas station. I fill the spare up with air. I bring it back. We put the spare on. It's working now. And of course, now we have a spare, so we can't go above 50 miles per hour. And, most of the drive is interstate. So it's like, well, crap. So we went back roads, and it took us almost twice as long. So we, come back, we unload the car, but now I have sump pumps that are dead. So we go to Home Depot and buy 2 brand new half horsepower cast iron sump pumps that can pump, I want to say it's 53 gallons a minute. Like, it's crazy amount of water. So now we have 2 of them. We always had 2 of them since the first flood. We put a second one in. But the one that failed the Saturday morning was like a third horsepower. No, a quarter horsepower. These are a half horsepower. So both of these now are more powerful than the previous one. And there's 2 of them. And so we basically I bring those home, we start putting together, but I can't get the things to align correctly with the existing piping. I've never cut PVC piping, never done that stuff. And so my father-in-law comes over, and he to help me out. And while we're working on the car, or working on the sump pumps, he tells me that Haley's grandma now has cancer. So now we've got, it was just day after issue after issue after issue, and it was just like, this cannot be the situation. Like, this cannot be happening. And so, so I was, devastated by that. You got the flooding, it was just bad. So that's why I didn't stream that Monday, because this basement was tore apart. It was still wet. Everything was soaked. So a couple things about this is we've flooded before. And so when we redid the basement a year ago, I asked the carpet guy, I said, we have water. We've had water here before. How do I deal with this issue of water and do it in the best way possible without doing just concrete floors? And he said carpet squares. And then he recommended a vinyl molding instead of the typical wood molding you would probably see in most places. I have a vinyl molding that is very business-like, but it's not wood, so therefore it won't wick up water. And twice now, this floor has gotten wet, and since I dried it out within hours, the carpet squares, they don't smell, there's no mold, and because the molding is vinyl, the drywall, as far as I can tell, has not got any water, or if it has, very little bit. Very little. And of course, there's no insulation behind it because it flooded the first time we took all that out. So therefore, there's air behind it. So there's air on both sides of this drywall. So we're just kind of going with the fact that we got it within hours, we ran dehumidifiers for 2 weeks straight, 3 dehumidifiers, emptying buckets 2, 3 times a day. And so it actually feels drier down here than it ever has. It also feels, or as Haley pointed out the other day, she's like, it smells better than it used to. How that's the case, I don't know. But it definitely does feel better down here than it did before. So I do have a couple photos I want to share with you. And so we will do that now. So let me do this. So this is what we did. This is our lake trip. You know, this is where we sat every night and basically watch the sunset. And this is why we go here, because this is just, you know, these sunsets over the water. The cabin is like 10 feet, 10 feet from the water. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And so this is why we go there, and we're there for a week. And then we happen to meet Jeremy, who lives, I don't know, 90 minutes away, give or take. So we hooked up and met with Jeremy at a local pub. It was an awesome experience to finally meet Jeremy. Obviously, I've been watching Jeremy for a while. We talk on Signal. Out to the middle of the lake, there's a sandbar, and we just, dock the boat. We hang out there. And so, yes, do you swim in the lake? Yes, this is a crystal clear. I should say, sorry, not crystal clear. It's not. If you ever heard of Torch Lake in Michigan, it's like the clearest water in Michigan. This is not that, but it's up there. So yes, we swim in the water. That boat by the flag is a boat that we are allowed to use all week long, and so we take the pontoon boat out to the sandbar. We swim. We just hang out on the boat. There are lots of other boats usually around the sandbar to say, because it's a very popular place to play or to just kind of hang out. This lake does have a lot of deeper spots, so like you could also go swimming and jump off the boat and not hit the bottom. You can go fishing. It's a very popular lake. And so yeah, so this is what I came home. And so Carpet Squares, and you can see up in the left-hand or the right-hand corner, the Vinyl Cove molding, if you will. And so, yeah, definitely buffering. There's no speed test. Is it back? Did I ever leave you guys? It was a wet buffering. All right, I don't know what that was about. This is called breaking news. Interesting. So it's a television-related thing, and you can see the backing is just kind of this vinyl mesh, and so that you can kind of, I don't know if you can't really see through, but I mean, it's going to allow air and water to go through it. That's for sure. So, yeah, so that's the Carpet Squares. Yeah, I went to bed that night super tired, and I probably lost 5 pounds. Yes, I left the water to go be in water. Yes. And yes, Jeremy is definitely a real person. Buffering. Back. Test. More buffering. Oh, I do see where the internet, the WAN just stopped. There was no traffic on the WAN. Interesting. Everything looks okay now. All right, so hopefully you're. Oh, you think it's that? Okay. See you in a second. All right, it looks like it's back, according to YouTube. Please let me know. All right. All right. So where we so yeah, so that's the water in the basement. So here were the two sump pumps that I took out. Like I said, the one on the left is kind of like the smaller one. That was the newer one. The one on the right was like, as far as I can tell, the original, which died before we left. I knew it died. I just never got around to replacing it, and that bit me. Yeah, that bit me hard. So this is now what my basement looks like. I have two sump pumps plugged into two different circuits, two different phases, and I replaced the check valves. Both check valves were actually bad. I mean, they were both leaking. And so I did a little cross bracing at the bottom just to make sure they were all like together so that they don't move around. And now here you see down in the crock, there's two pumps facing opposite directions, both being plumbed out, both going through check valves. And then, because I've always wanted a battery backup unit, and obviously I've always been concerned about a battery backup unit, I went online and started looking up battery backup units. And there's a lot of different options for some pumps, but most of them require you to have a 12-volt DC pump to run because they go from AC to DC and then they don't want to come back. Well, I didn't like the idea of buying a dedicated DC pump because they're typically less powerful. And so I went online, started looking up EcoFlow or batteries, and I found EcoFlow. I've heard of them before, but never did a whole lot of research into them. So I started watching videos. I came across 8-Bit Guy's videos on EcoFlow and the Texas power outage. And he did two different tests, one during the summer, one during the wintertime. If you don't know 8-Bit Guy, go look him up. He has a build series on an outdoor studio, and he powers the whole thing off of EcoFlow batteries. And I went online to Amazon, and they had one for 43% off. And I was like, okay, I'm pulling the trigger. So I have a EcoFlow battery backup unit that should be here tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, tomorrow. So I will be plugging one of the sump pumps in to the battery backup unit, and I will probably do a review on that unit because it seems awfully cool. So I'm pretty excited to get it in. I got it on a great price, which just definitely helped bank. And did some calculations, and by my math, based on measuring the new sump pump, which uses 662 watts when pumping water, I can run for 48 minutes straight. And I don't think, if we're in a situation where we're pumping water for 48 minutes straight, that is some storm. So I I feel like, based on some of the videos that I've watched, we're talking about at least a good 4 or 5 hours of battery backup power based on a typical kind of consumption of the sump pump. I mean, this sump pump will drain that crock. Yes, yes, Joe, they call it a crock. It'll drain that thing in like 10 seconds. So I really don't think it's going to run very continuously, even in a storm. So I do believe that I'm going to have about 4 hours or 5 hours of battery backup power, and full force backup power. So like, if the water's coming in fast, this half horsepower motor is going to get the water out instantly. So I'm pretty confident that that's going to be a situation that's going to be good. And then one thing I do want to do still that I haven't done yet is I want to hook up a simple pass through to outside and basically get a generator hookup and then bring it inside and then have an outlet there that only goes to outside. So if I need to hook up a generator outside, I can plug in a generator and then simply switch the EcoFlow over to that outlet, and now I'm recharging the EcoFlow and powering the battery off of a generator. My neighbor has a big generator, and his sump pump is in the corner of his house next to mine. They're like 15 feet apart. So if he's going to be bringing a generator out, my hope is I can just plug into his generator. If not, I can go get one from somewhere else. I could do whatever. We have vehicles at work that have inverters in them, so I could, in theory, go to work, bring home one of the vehicles that has an inverter, and I could just plug into the inverter and then power it off of that. So it buys me some time. I did spend a lot of time researching, generators, both natural gas and gas, automotive gas. Natural gas generators are great, but they're like $13,000 installed, and we just don't have that kind of money right now. The gas generators that I looked into were feasible, but I also want it to be automatic. And so anything that requires me to go outside or my wife to go outside in a storm and plug in the generator, or go out there and start it and plug cables in, that just didn't seem very feasible, for somebody like me who's often gone, or if the power outage happens, at night and I'm not even aware of it, that doesn't do anyone any good. So I think the battery backup route will probably be the best route, and then that should buy me time, in theory, to go get a generator from somewhere, or bring a car over, like I said, and plug the car in. I don't know. I mean, I thought about getting an inverter for my car, because there are times where I've needed power places and didn't have it. So I thought about just getting an inverter for my car, and then that way I could plug into my car. And so, yeah. So the basement flood was the biggest reason I've been gone. I will say we've had some issues at work here and there. At the university, we have an issue, and that got called out on a Friday night for. So I've just been here and there and everywhere, and yeah. So that's kind of what's been my last couple of weeks. So sorry I haven't been around, but I'm back. I should be back on a pretty regular schedule now. I don't have anything going on for the foreseeable future on Mondays. So let's look at the chat and see what you guys are saying. Eric says, good, you got your check valves addressed. Yeah, it wasn't very fun when I unplugged the one sump pump and the other one fired off and then water came out the pipe. Like that's not supposed to happen. Yeah, Toro says he's a big fan of 8-Bit Guy. I like the guy. I don't watch most of his videos because I'm not really into antique hardware like that. but dude is very smart. Obviously, he's pretty talented, and he makes some good videos. And I definitely liked his studio series where he built a little studio out back. I definitely made some notes off of his series. Joe says EcoFlow is great, that he has a small one. Yeah, so that was the thing I was also looking at is most of the traditional battery backup units basically use lead acid batteries. They require maintenance. Like this thing I want to put in the corner and plug it in, and other than doing occasional testing on it, I don't want to have to touch it. So, and the other thing I'm going to try to do, which I haven't done yet, but that's not really a big deal because it's not wintertime yet, is I'm going to, I think I've commented before that I've watched a lot of HVAC videos. Well, I've been watching more HVAC videos still. And the one guy converted his switch for his furnace to be a plug-in outlet. And so now I'm thinking like, well, crap, that'd be great if I could have the ability to plug in the furnace in the wintertime and either plug it into a generator or plug it into an EcoFlow battery and fire it up even for like 10 minutes just to put heat back in the house if it was a prolonged power outage. It was just a thought I had. But the idea of having, your furnace on a plug, and that way you have some versatility as opposed to just it being off. I'm definitely going to do that. That shouldn't be a big project. And so I'm going to definitely do that as well. Eric, it was Doug. I was actually watching Doug Johnson. I think Doug Johnson is the one who said that EcoFlow had a price drop, and I went and looked at it up, and I think it was Doug. I think it was Doug. So I have to give props to Doug for putting a video out that was timely and accurate. You bought 2 of the River 2. Wow, okay. Yeah, the prices that I was looking at, most of the things were basically coming in about 10,000 to 13,000, give or take. There's a company about 20 minutes from here that sells generators, and that's their whole business is generators, and that was basically the price they were charging. Toro, you're building a Raspberry Pi 5 with an NVMe drive. Ooh, that sounds interesting. I did a video on my truck setup, secondary battery with 1,000-watt inverter and a router and antenna. But did Ashley let you cut a hole in it? Did I see this video? I don't know if I saw this video or not. What is a crock? The black thing is the crock. I don't know why they call it that. That's what I've always heard it been called. That's the black tank, if you will. The black, I don't know what it's called, or what they call it, a crock. I don't know. But that's what the black thing is. It's the hole in the ground. Hi, Craig, for Fort Worth. I was in Fort Worth, Texas as a kid. Yes, Toro says his outbuilding is awesome. Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario in the future where I would be building something similar, because not in this property, because this property doesn't have a lot of space, but in the future, I would like to, hopefully have a bigger lot and have like an outbuilding, maybe doubles a pool house. I don't know. Yes, his timing was great. Oh, the video isn't out yet. I was like, I didn't think I saw that video yet, but I would love to see that video. Sorry, Ashley wouldn't let you put a hole in the roof. I mean, we do it all the time at work. I don't know why it's not a problem if you do it right. Oh yeah, so I forgot to cover it. So the reason why I didn't stream last Monday is because I finally got around to putting all the stuff back together, and as far as I can tell, the only thing I lost in terms of the streaming setup was the power supply to this camera. So, the fly pack is about this, the equipment's about this far off the ground, so the flood was not that high because the network switch fired right up. Everything else fired up. I mean, the power strip that I have was underwater, and it works because I just let it dry out for 2 weeks. But when I plugged the camera back in, I heard a loud pop. And so the power supply in that camera must have still been wet. And so I went and found a new power supply, and I plugged it in, and it worked. So I got lucky, very lucky there, that, I could basically use any 12-volt power supply that outputs 3 amps. And so I have a whole box of power supplies over there, and so, cobbled together one. And so it works. So we did lose, we used to have over here to my right 2 big cabinets that were for Haley's scrapbook. And they were that particle board, and they started developing mold within like a week. And so I had to throw those away. And so we lost a couple other things that were still in boxes, but because of the first flood, everything is in plastic bins. I mean, or at least off the ground. So we don't have, we got very lucky. There were a couple things that got wet. They were on the floor. That was my fault. But nothing mission critical or devastating, unlike the first one. So, and I should probably talk about, you probably didn't think about this, or maybe you did. How did I lose internet access when the flood happened? And this is a funny story, and a part I probably should have mentioned. So the first time we flooded, I noticed it because I went to go use the internet in the morning, and the internet didn't work. And I was like, well, that's odd. Maybe Spectrum is just down. So I turned the TV on, and the TV didn't work. Now, the TV is DirecTV. So I'm like, wait a minute. The only 2 things those share in common are that wall of tech that you have seen in a video before. So I open up the door and walk and immediately see water. So I know there's a big issue. And so I walked downstairs. This is 10 years ago. And I was like, well, how in the hell did that thing go off? And then I realized that I had a computer sitting on the floor that I was testing, and water had hit the circuit board, causing it to short out, and it blew the breaker. So we fast forward to the second flood, and I had went on vacation, so I had unplugged a lot of my servers, or I guess mainly one server, that I didn't need, and I had just unplugged the cable and let it drop to the floor, not thinking anything about it. And because I did that, the water hit the plug, causing the GFCI to shut off to the internet. So the internet went off, hence why the Ting alerting system lost internet access, because the GFCI circuit blew, because essentially there was a water sensor, aka electricity, and therefore it told me. So both times I had been alerted to the flood, because there were computers or electricity involved and it was getting cut off. So we actually had a small flood about a year ago, little, I guess 9 months ago. Haley was gone on a work trip, and I was upstairs, and something just told me to go plug my laptop in. I don't know why. I don't know what was the big deal. Like, my laptop, I don't know why I had to go plug it in. I don't know what the deal was, but someone said, go plug your damn laptop in. And I'm like, okay, so fine. So I find my laptop, but the charger's down here. So I came downstairs to grab the charger, and when I hit the bottom step, I hear squish. And it turns out the water heater, the original water heater, had sprung a leak. And what we call the game room, which is over there, that whole room was flooded. And so I went and turned the water heater off, and because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I didn't call my parents that time, but I actually had a coworker, and actually one of the groomsmen in my wedding. I knew he was up late, so I messaged him and I said, "Are you awake?" He's like, "Yeah, why?" And I'm like, "I need fans." So I went over to his house at 3 o'clock in the morning and grabbed like 4 fans. He happened to have 4 box fans, and so I think it was 4. And so I brought the fans back, and we dried the basement. I dried it out at 3 o'clock in the morning, back in, I think it was September, October. So this is actually the third, essentially, flood in the basement. But now I know how to replace water heaters. Now I know how to replace sump pumps. I know that you use carpet squares in basements and that you use vinyl tile or vinyl molding. You should always have a dehumidifier for your basement. You should always have fans on standby, or know people who have fans, because they're really helpful. So Joe wants to know, how does a crock work? Oh, you don't have a crock. Okay. So in this picture, so this is in the corner of my my basement. So here you can see, this is the corner of the basement, and there to the left is the wall of technology. And so there's a hole in the floor, and it goes down, I want to say 3 feet, something like that. And so there's this hole, and there's this little pit. And so that pipe in the middle of the screen that you can see the open end on, that is actually tied in to the drainage system in the basement, like underneath the concrete floor. So when water, gets to a certain level underneath the concrete floor, it comes out that tube, and it can come out that tube at a pretty good clip. And then the sump pump, or sump pumps, will push the water up those pipes, and it'll go out that big pipe on the right where you can see the concrete kind of mess. So it takes the water that's underneath the floor and it pumps it outside into the drainage system of the development that I live in. And so it pumps the water out. Why anyone thought it was a good idea to put these inside the house, I still don't fully understand. I also don't know that it would make that big a difference, because if the water is rising up underneath your basement and this thing was outside, I don't know that it would make any difference, because now you have water inside and you have no way to get it out. So I think they put them inside the house so that you have some way to get the water out. It'd also be good because if there ever is a leak in the house, like say a pipe burst, the water would find this, and then the sump pumps would get it out. So I've heard people say they put this outside, like in some climates, but I guess probably because also we freeze here. I guess this is why it's inside. But every basement, and basements are very popular around here, has a setup just like this. They all have a crock in a corner. Now, some houses have two. I don't know why some have two, but I guess that's a thing I've seen. And so this is also where so that brown pipe on the left-hand side, that is actually the pipe coming from the air conditioning system. So whenever, HVAC generates a lot of condensation, or sorry, air conditioning generates a lot of condensation, and the condensation pump, the pump pushes the water up over the ceiling and into this. So there's always water coming in when the air conditioning system is running. We also now have a dehumidifier running 24/7, and that drains its water into here as well. So we are putting water in this thing constantly, and the sump pumps are pushing it out. And then if you can see on the bottom there, the sump pumps, they're at different heights, so that one is a backup. And so if the one dies, the other one will take over and continue working. Now, the white pipe you see at the top, the big pipe that is like at the top of the screen, that is actually a radon gas removal system, because when we moved in here, we had it tested, and the basement has radon in it, which at a certain level is unhealthy. And so this is essentially a vacuum, and it sucks the radon gas and air in this little crock outside and exhausts it above the roof, so that the radon gas does not accumulate in the basement. And so I do need to put a cover over this. Like, this should be underneath a cover. But I just haven't got around to doing that yet, because the one I had will not work because the pipes aren't in the same spot anymore. So I have to go get a new cover and then cut holes. But I also don't like the idea of not being able to see in. So I'm kind of like thinking about getting a plexiglass, and cutting plexiglass so I can actually see in here. And finding a way to make it removable as well, so I can, get down there and test these things every once in a while. So let me go back to chat. Hopefully that answered your question. If don't poke the bear, Joe is still But Joe likes to poke the bear, so. Yeah, we have a whole pit. I'm not sure what the length of pipe is, but yeah. Keith Bennett, you made it. Glad that you could make it. Well, it kept me off the internet for a little bit, but not horrible. I think I answered this question. Eric, if not, let me know. Yeah, the Great Flood of 2024. Completely unintentional. Which is why, Craft Computing. Sorry, took me a while. Craft Computing is making that sensor, and he mentioned on his latest video that he plans on making it like a water sensor, or adding that functionality in, because he had some pump failures. And I commented on the video, I'm like, please do the water feature, because I would love to have a little thing down in there that could sense water, before it comes out of the crock, and let me know that, hey, the water is building up above a certain level. I've seen audible alarms, but I don't think audible alarms would be very good, because chances are we're not going to be here when it happens, or if we are, we're sleeping and may not hear it, or the power is out and we have nothing to do about it. But I'd love to get a notification like, hey, it's running. I'm also wanting to find some way to monitor the current of the sump pumps and basically track their usage, because I want to be able to track and say, okay, how often does it run? How much wattage is it drawing? Does the second one ever come on? And if the second one is ever on and the first one is not on, I want an email notification that says the sump pump has failed so I can replace it. I've got to figure that out, like, some sort of system. It'll probably be Home Assistant, but I'm not sure how I would do that. I also want to monitor the HVAC for its power usage, and I'd love to know, like, the efficiency of it, to see, like, the air going in, what temperature that is, and the air coming out, like, kind of to be able to measure that differential and see, like, how efficient is the air conditioning actually doing. So look for some, I don't want to say smart home, because I don't like the idea of smart home automation. I more want to monitor what is happening, because I don't really want to automate things, but I want to know when things go wrong. The transmitter sites can email me when there's an issue. I kind of want my house to email me when there's an issue. Yeah, there was the big flood of 24, the small flood of 2023. I mean, it's a way to do it. I'm not saying it's a great way to do it, but it's worked out twice. Well, in theory, it's GFCI, so it should grab it before you feel it. I mean, that whole circuit over there, that whole wall is on a GFCI because we are in a basement. It's required by code that everything in this basement be GFCI. And so that circuit is GFCI. The circuits that feed the walls, because I redid them properly, they're both GFCI. And so you, in theory, wouldn't feel it because it should catch it before you feel it. I know how to drywall. I don't like doing it. So we actually outsourced the drywall because I'm not good at it. I can hang the board, but I hate it. So we yeah, Eric. So, Joe, to answer your question, yeah, Eric says, like, it's a bilge on a boat. Every boat leaks, and so you're basically is there a way to explain this? I don't know if there's probably a good way to do this. All right, this is just a graphic I found on the internet. I have no idea. So basically, they call it a sump tank. I've heard it as a crock pot or crock, whatever. So basically, there's a interior drainage. There's tile that runs around the interior of your basement below the concrete floor. So as water, as water kind of comes up here, you'll see it in the crock first before you see it inside, and this pumps the water outside so that it never fills up into your basement. So basically, it's below your subfloor, and therefore it gets the water out before it gets inside. Unfortunately, it also means that you're bringing the water inside to get it out. I don't know if this outdoor weeping tile, as they say, I don't know if this is what we have in ours because we don't have two holes. We only have one. But I'm guessing we have at least the interior drainage system because basically any water that gets under the foundation is going to get in these tiles that are perforated. There's rocks in them, and then bring the water in, and then the sump pump gets it out. So hopefully that answers your question, Joe. Chris says, my parents' house live on a side of a hill. They have a problem where hydrostatic pressure. They just buried a special plastic wall deeper than. Interesting. Most houses have one, but some don't. Huh. Probably depends on how high your water table is. This is proof we aren't meant to live on this planet. Well, yeah, water is the enemy of lots of things, yes. Keith is saying hi. Joe's saying hi to Keith. I would love to know which one. I'd be interested in knowing that. Keith says, you need a studio arc. Yeah, that... 2 of each item. So 2 ATEMs, 2 cameras, 2 hyperdecks. Yeah, I definitely want to get some. I do want some sort of warning, like, hey, idiot, there's water in your basement. You know. How they do not run very often. Like we got a storm. Well, we didn't get a storm last night. We got a rainstorm a couple days ago, and I checked it 3 times because I was like paranoid now, and I never saw water come in. So we don't, knock on wood, we don't get, like, they don't run constantly. The first flood was, we got I believe it was 5 inches of rain in like an hour and a half. Like, it was historic amounts of rainfall. This past 2 weeks ago, when it rained, we had flooding in fields around us that I've never seen water in before. And mind you, there's a field about 15 feet that way, maybe 20 feet. There's a field to my left, and there was water sitting in that field for days. And once we drained the basement, there was still water outside, but there was no more water coming in. And the water sat there for days. So they don't run very often, but they definitely do run. And so it's those, a couple big storms a year, basically, that I think are what caused the issue. No, my kilowatt device is dumb. It doesn't have, like you say, it doesn't have any way of recording. It's just real time. Here's what's happening. I want my house to email me. Well, I consider you all my friends, so I feel like I do have friends. I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah, I do not like drywall. So when this house flooded the first time, the drywall was absolutely shitty. The previous homeowners did a horrible job. I mean, there were little like waves. You could like literally see the waves in the drywall. There were spots that didn't have like as much drywall as the spot next to them. The electrical was absolutely horrible. I mean, horrible. And so when we flooded the first time, I just considered it a blessing because I wanted to redo the drywall anyway. And so the insurance company paid for everything to be like about this high and below was removed. And I just removed the rest because it was so bad to begin with that it needed redone anyway. And the electrical, like I said, was horrible. The electrical, I mean, the outlet back here was fed off the kitchen. And the one outlet up front was fed off the bathroom upstairs. And that was it. Like, there was no electrical down here other than 2 outlets, one on each wall. And even though the electrical panel is 30 feet that way, they pulled power off upstairs. So I got rid of those and then ran circuits to the electrical panel so that, you know, I have 2 circuits, front and back, and they're dedicated circuits for the basement. They're GFCI, all that stuff. And so really that was kind of nice. And then like I found in this wall buried junction boxes, which are against code. They had a funky thing over here. You guys can't see it, but there's a storage room underneath the stairs, and there's support columns, and they built like this big box around the support column, and it stuck out into the room, and you didn't need that because there was no need to do it that way. You could literally just like flush mount the drywall, and it would have been fine. So like I redid that. I redid all the doors to make them bigger because they were all small doors, and I'm like, why are we using small doors? Like, just get the biggest door you can. The water shutoff valve. The water shutoff valve. I wish I had a picture. Was literally they punched a hole in the drywall and covered it with a piece of wood that was like tacked on. So if you wanted to shut off the water, you had to like pull the piece of wood off the wall, reach through the drywall, shut off the water, and then when you were done, you would in theory like put this piece of like thin plywood back on and like tack it to the. It was so just, it was hideous. So I cut a doorway in. So now the shutoff valve is behind a door. So you open up the door and there's a shutoff valve, and now we have a little more storage in that corner because I made a storage room. Like, it was just so bad. My whole house is AFCI. So, yeah, so AFCI is arc fault. And I believe that's the new standard. I have 4 of those breakers for the bedrooms upstairs because when this house was built, you only had to have arc fault in bedrooms. I believe now you have to have arc fault everywhere. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I've been watching electrical videos as well because, of course, YouTube is like, well, you watch HVAC videos, you'll probably love electrical videos, and I'm like, yes, I will. And so I've been watching electrical videos, and some guy just watched rip out a whole panel and put in a smart panel, and it's all like Wi-Fi enabled circuit breakers, and the whole panel was arc fault. Ernesto says, my wife is more the handyman than I am. Her stepdad was a handyman. I hate to admit it, I'm more the tech guy. I'm both. I'm the handyman and the tech guy. Haley's more the health and decorating and organization person. Can you smell the crock is cooking? Wow, that's funny. Jeremy says TP Link HS110 or something similar. You know, I do have TP Links. No, I have Casa smart switches. I'll have to look TP HS110. Smart plug. Oh, with energy monitoring. Sweet. I will have to look that up. I think it'd be funny if it said that. I'm just saying. So the sump pump goes into a pipe that goes into the sewer drains. So that's why you have to have check valves on it, because if the sewer drains were to like be crazy backed up, in theory you could get water coming in that pipe, and the check valve will make sure that water doesn't come in via that pipe. So it goes out and goes to the sewer system. Oh, Govee. I've heard of Govee. I will have to check that one out as well. Oh, okay. Water that one. $8. That's interesting. I will have to check both of those out. Did I just? Yeah. Okay. They weren't. Yeah, they were small doors. They one was a the storage room over here was a bifold door, which I always thought was kind of stupid. And then the one, like I said, was a hole in the wall, and it was like, so I just put real doors in. Yeah, I mean, arc faults. The issue with arc fault is, or not the issue, but they're way more expensive. But you have to have the neutral wire for each circuit come back to the circuit breaker. So it's definitely a different way of wiring up your panel. And if you're doing a retrofit, chances are all your neutral wires stop at the top of the panel when they enter the panel. And so your hot wires go down to all the circuits, and your neutrals will be way too short. So you'll have to literally extend all your neutral lines to the breakers for those circuits. And so it's a lot of work if, if your panel wasn't done right in the first place, or wasn't done with some forward thinking, and they just cut the wires off at the shortest possible spot, which is I see a lot, and so therefore a retrofit like that may not work very well. It just depends on how your breaker box was done. Except garage in my area. In my area, garage just needs GFCI. Outlet breaker could be standard none. Oh, so you have to have arc fault everywhere except for your garage. That breaker could be standard non-GFCI, AFCI, but sadly your fridge trips it. Welcome in, David. You're not fired, David. The $8 ones by my hot water since they explode. Yeah, my hot water heater is brand new, like as in 9 months ago. So hopefully it doesn't explode anytime soon. I did. I had not finished it yet, but I did buy the catch basin pan or whatever you want to call it for the hot water heater. So if it leaks again, now there's a pan to catch the water. And one of my projects is to take. It has an outlet. You have to plumb into your crock because Joe likes that word. So I have to run a PVC line around the basement perimeter and to the crock so that it can drain in the event that it floods. So I haven't done that yet, but at least the pan's there because you can't go back and add the pan later. You have to put it in first. So I did spend like $20 to buy the pan to catch the water if the hot water heater tank leaks again. And in hindsight, if I was smart, I would have bought one of the heat pump water heaters instead, and disconnected the gas line entirely because I don't, and I would have done a heat pump water heater because that room is getting awfully warm with my servers running, and so the heat pump water heater would work great because it would take the heat from the servers and put it in the water, and then it cooled the room down. And then I've heard you can get like $400, $500 rebates on your taxes to buy smart water heaters, or I should say energy efficient water heaters like that. So I wish I would have spent more money and bought the heat pump water heater, and then I wouldn't have a gas bill, and then the room would be cooler, and it'd be more energy efficient. Yeah, so if the pan on the bottom, if you have a pan around yours, that pan is designed to be run over to a crock so that if it leaks, it goes into the crock and the sump pump can pump the water out. But if you don't have a crock, then yeah, you don't really have that as an option. There's also a spigot on the hot water heater so that you could drain the hot water heater and get the crud out of it, because you should get the crud out of it every couple, I think it's every year, once a year. I forget how often they recommend. But basically, crud gets in the water heater and then makes it inefficient. And so that spigot, the drain hose on the bottom of the water heater, is designed so that you can actually drain the hot water heater and get all that crud out. And because the crock is in the same room as the water heater and the HVAC, you can just run the hose across the floor into the crock, and then therefore makes it really easy to do maintenance on your water heater because you just run a hose across the floor and there you go. So it really does come in handy for lots of different things. So $10 years seems short, but I wouldn't doubt that. Our water heater lasted 21 years. No, don't head for the door. You can stay. Credit card, baby. That's what credit cards are for. The hot water heater we bought on a Home Depot credit card and paid it off in 6 months, no interest. The sump pumps and EcoLeaf or EcoFlow, yeah. Those went on a credit card. I have no option, have no choice on that one. So I have a heat pump water heater. Love it. Slight noise. Hear the low hum throughout the house. I've heard that you could hear low hum, but when the AC runs, we hear that throughout the whole house too. So I have a whole like plan for my future house where like there's rock wool insulation in every floor and the walls and they're staggered stud construction so they're quiet. Like I have a whole idea, a list of things that I want done for the new house to make it quieter, energy efficient, more efficient and all kinds of things. But right now there's literally no insulation between floors, which I find crazy. But the builder of this house and the whole subdivision was cheap AF. And so I'm not surprised, but yeah. And this is our first house. Like, so there were lots of things that I knew about. Growing up watching This Old House and Home Time and all those old house, that series like type of house shows. I knew a lot about stuff, but a lot of things you don't realize or you don't get enforced until you actually own a house, and you're like, crap, that's how that works. So, yeah, lots of fun there. Yes, you should remove crud from your hot water heater on a regular basis because it'll definitely accumulate. And the worse the water is, like the worse your water is, the worse crud you have. So I don't know if you could, if you have no crock, I'm not sure how you're going to do that, honestly. Craig says, we have AFCI arc fault circuit breakers for all outlets except bathrooms, kitchen, and outdoor outlets where those are GFCI. Also have panel mount with whose house? What is SPD? SPD. Oh, I'm guessing whole house surge protection? I'm guessing that's what that means. All outlets except bathrooms, kitchen, and outdoor outlets. Those are GFCI. That makes sense. Yeah, the water heater was old enough to drink. It was the original hot water heater. David says his current one's on year 18. The previous one was 11. Okay, so I guess, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, let's put it this way. There's two things in this development that are not even up to code. The retention pond is too small, and there's only one way in. And so FEMA, FEMA is telling the village that they have to put a second road in for us so that there's more than one way to get in or out. And then the first time we flooded, the retention pond was full, so the street started to flood. And so there was literally water like halfway up the street. There was water because there was no place for it to go. So the village had to install a pump on the retaining pond, and then so it takes the water out of the retaining pond and pumps it into a ditch that goes to the river, that goes to the lake. Like, so in order to get the water out of here, we had to install a massive pump so that the streets didn't flood. Yeah, surge protection. Okay. I've looked at whole house surge protection. I'm not sure how important or how valuable it is, but I'm curious. So it sounds like Haley's home. So I think I'm going to wrap this stream up. Let me look at any more questions. Getting out. That's like Paradise, California. They were fired. Yeah, the retention pond is too small. So all the streets drain into this pond, and then the pond now has to get pumped into the ditch because it fills up too fast, and then therefore the streets flood. And then because our sump pumps drain in to the streets, the house is back up. So that was the first flood. Um, I wouldn't say that. I think that that's just, I mean, every house, I mean, it really depends on how you build the houses. I mean, um, the retention pond should have been bigger. And so how the developer got that approved is beyond me. Um, since they put that pump in, we haven't had the streets flood once, not even once. So I think that solved the issue. Um, but I think lots of places have pumps because water, depends on how high your water table is underneath your ground. I mean, some people have it, I don't know, 8 feet down, or some people have it 30 feet down. I don't know. It really depends. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily an issue. I think that the issue is that the subdivision wasn't built correctly. We are getting a new subdivision in theory, over that way, and so I'll be curious to watch them build that and see how they build that one versus how they built this one. Um, if you don't mind getting in your breaker box, a whole house surf protector costs less than $100 and takes about an hour to install. Yeah, I've been in my circuit breaker box several times. I'm not opposed to doing that. I do believe I have. That's the part I don't know. I'm not sure if I have outlets available or not. I feel like I have at least one, but I'm guessing you probably need two since it protect both sides. The new subdivision will float away. No, no, no. I'm pretty sure that one's not going to float away. The rules governing houses these days are very different than they used to be. So I'm sure they'll be fine. So anyway, on that note, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Hopefully you all enjoyed this, learned something new. I hope you'll be back next week. I'm sorry about the audio at the beginning, but there's actually not a lot of water around here. Like, there's usually not water. It's actually a fairly dry place. The bottom two need to have 15 amps or less. The bottom two breakers? No, the shirt is actually a cruise shirt because we just booked a cruise for next year. All right, Craig says good show. Thank you. Yeah, good things will settle down. I think the bottom two breakers slots are both open in my panel. So stay dry. Yeah, cruise shirt on water. Yep. All right. Well, with that, thank you all for being here. I will see you all next time. And let me do this and that. And good night.